Jason, the floor is yours. Please, let's get all of your experts up first, and let's have Brian swear them all in together. I want to just lay the ground rules down for the members of the board and for the public, so everybody knows how it's going to run tonight. It's a rather large application with a lot of testimony, a lot of information. We're going to have everybody muted, and Jason and his experts will give all their testimony. When they're done with all their testimony, if board members have small questions of clarification along the way, they could pipe in if they need to, preferably if you could write it down and wait. That being said, after all of the testimony is done and Jason is done with his initial testimony of all his witnesses, it'll be opened up for the public to both ask questions and give their any opinions that they have at the same time. I think that'll work smoother and easier on Zoom. So let's get all of the information. If anybody has questions along the way, please write them down. Members of the public, I will go through carefully to get everybody. Then I will close it to the public and the board will have its questions and then deliberate. And
Joey.
And Jason, you'll get a closing statement before we close it to the public and let the
I don't know that Jason has access to the same documents and pagination that we do, but it would be helpful for either you or for Brian. I know there's a 168-page document here. If he's referring to an exhibit, it'll be helpful to us to know what page it is on that 168 PDF, so we're not like...
Yeah, I'll go over that, Mr. Zomick, I promise you. We'll have that covered.
And before we start, the notice and everything checked out, everyone was noticed, and everything is okay with that.
Thank you.
All right. All right, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jason Tubell, attorney for the applicant. I'll just give a very brief opening, and then we could swear in all our witnesses and get started. So this is an application for 520 Palisade, block 2402, lot 1. It's known to a lot of people as the soap factory or the Holuba site. The site's been vacant for a long time. There are several dilapidated buildings on the site, and the site is in disrepair. In 2019, as part of the township's affordable housing case or declaratory judgment action that almost all municipalities in New Jersey participated in based on the Supreme Court decision, the property was rezoned in 2019, as the chairman indicated, into the RAHO zone, which was the residential affordable housing zone. The zone permits the development that we're seeking, that we propose in full. We're seeking 78 residential units. 62 of them are market rate, and those are going to be the townhouses. 16 of them will be affordable units within the multifamily structure that we're proposing on the site. The reason that our set aside here is 20% is because these are for sale units. So the townhomes, as well as the units within the multifamily building, are all for sale, which is why it's a 20% set aside with respect to the affordable housing. Just as the chairman indicated, this project is substantially compliant with the zoning requirements. In fact, from a density standpoint, we're under the amount of density. We're proposing 78 units where 83 is permitted. We're well under on impervious coverage, and the variances we do have, building height and setback, are very de minimis in nature. Just one other thing before we get started, we've reviewed all the reports submitted by the board's professionals. We can agree to those technical comments. There are some items that require testimony that we'll go over. So we'll go over that during testimony. In addition to that, we did get a letter from the Bogota Police Department regarding the access on Leonia Avenue. Based on that letter, and speaking to my client and my site engineer and traffic engineer, we feel that making that an emergency access only for the development is the way to go. The Bogota letter actually wanted it to be a one-way driveway and out only heading southbound. We're actually taking it a step further, and we're just going to close that off to general traffic and have that be an emergency access point for fire, police, et cetera, both for Teaneck and Bogota as needed. So our traffic engineer and site engineer will go over that, but I just wanted to state that from the beginning because I thought that was an important letter that we received from the borough of Bogota. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we can swear in all the witnesses now. I have 4 witnesses: Patty Ruskin, Nicholas Verderisi, Vince Benatti, and Elizabeth McManus. And I guess Brian, we could swear them in now if you'd like.
Let's do everybody at once. I'm going to ask all four of you to raise your right hand. You swear testimony you can give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
And Jason, I guess we'll do one at a time, and you'll
Yeah.
qualify them one at a time.
Absolutely. So we're going to start with Patty Ruskin, who's our civil engineer from PS&S. So Patty, if you could just, for the benefit of the board, go through your qualifications.
Jason, 1 second before you go further.
Yeah.
Patty, Nick, Elizabeth, who's the fourth one?
Oh, Vince Benatti from Zamplin and Associates.
Okay, I got him. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Couldn't find him.
All right, Patty, if you could just go through your educational background, licenses held, and experience testifying as a civil engineer in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. If anyone from the public wants to speak, just send me a note in the chat and I'll unmute you. Or if you put on your video and you can wave. I don't see any chat comments or any waves.
I have a question, Chair. This is Howard.
Yeah, Howard, hang on. I'm trying to take care of the public first, okay?
Okay.
Can it wait?
Sure.
Yeah, it looks like, Mr. Chairman, that
The powers, I see. I got it.
Yeah, there's also looks like a Rochelle and Alan Sohn looks like. he
Okay.
had-
Go ahead, Mr. Powers.
I'm not sure to which witness this gets
Just
raised
ask
with.
the question and Mr. Tavel will have the appropriate witness answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I heard almost no discussion whatsoever of the environmental remediation going to be required in the course of the development of this property in this way. There's the Brennan report. Last report that I know about is the October 30th, 2018 report by Brennan. Can you update
Yeah,
us on
sure.
how the remediation is going to be handled, the prospect for its completion prior to the construction here?
Yeah, no problem. Hey, Dr. Powers, good to see you. I'll have Ms. Ruskin testify to that. I believe we mentioned that, but if you missed it or weren't clear, I apologize. So Patty,
I'd like considerably greater exploration of it. Thank you.
all right, Patty, you want to address Mr. Powers' question just on the environmental? You have to unmute, Patty. There you go.
Okay. There was some information in the EIS that was prepared, and I will just summarize that going into actual detail. But there were some 16 exceedances or areas of concern that were identified that you also mentioned from the Brennan report. PSNS's environmental folks did additional investigation and identified some need for soil remediation in 4 of those areas. So additional studies and testing was done. The supplemental analysis and sampling was addressed, and
Right.
it was determined that approximately or less than 50 tons of small soil excavation areas and disposal will be required. And so ultimately, it would be the intent is, and we feel that can be met, that we would meet the residential standards. Once this remediation is done, it will be overseen by an environmental professional as LSRP to ensure that is done in accordance with the regulations.
Has that LSRP been identified?
The LSRP, because the site will be sold from the Holuba group, the LSRP would be identified by the new owner. So currently their LSRP has not been identified.
Right. And you say it's the intention by carrying out this removal that every aspect, every part of the entire plot being discussed tonight would meet residential standards?
Yeah, that's the goal, Mr. Powers. And I know you're very familiar with all this, but yeah, we would not have a deed notice. The goal would be to bring it up to the residential standards. That's correct.
A goal is one thing. That are you willing to stipulate to that?
Well, that's not really something that the board has under, that wouldn't be a condition of a planning board, but since you asked the question, the answer is that's the intent of the applicant. And the Environmental Commission asked to be copied on all the correspondence with the DEP mediation, which were also found to be acceptable.
You
Any other
mentioned
questions, Mr. Power?
you mentioned the Environmental Commission's review. Have you studied I'm not sure which one of you, have you studied the Environmental Commission's comments on this plan?
Yes.
And
All of them.
That's outside the realm of this. That's outside the realm of this application.
how can that possibly be? It's required for a site plan to be approved, you folks have to receive that.
There was nothing, to
recommendation.
answer your question, there was nothing in the Environmental Commission report that was an issue. The only thing that was mentioned is they indicated that we needed DEP approval for our stormwater discharge, which isn't the case. That's a municipal approval. But other than that, Patty, I don't think anything else in there was objectionable, correct?
That's correct. There is a stormwater discharge permit that's a part of basically the soil erosion prior to construction. So that is monitored. That is a DEP permit that is required, but not like a wetland or flood hazard area or any other type of permit like that.
The site is pretty dry, there's no question. The next question relates to, and I'm again not quite sure which of you would be.
Just ask the question, please.
Okay, the planner, perhaps. My question is, well, no, let's start with the architect. What is the relative size of the bedrooms of the townhouses, which appear to be standard, and the size of the bedrooms in the affordable housing units?
Okay, so Vince, why don't you just answer Dr. Powers' question regarding the size of the bedrooms in the buildings?
Okay, we will start with the townhouses first.
And I know it varies, so you could just give the range that they are.
This varies. We're going to call it the second and the third bedroom are about 10 by 11. The master bedroom is about 13 by 15.
Okay, thank you.
And you're describing, wait, I asked for the comparison between them and the ones in the townhouses.
Yeah, no, he just gave the townhouses. We were going to
Those are the townhouses.
Okay. And the size of the bedrooms.
What about the apartments?
For the apartments, they do vary. 10'5" by 8'6", 11 by 8, 9, almost 10 by 8. The smallest dimension of any bedroom in this whole development is 8'6".
Thank you very much.
The affordable housing unit apartments are about what, 1/3 less than in size than the comparable townhouse units?
I would say not 1/3, but probably between 20 and 25%.
Okay. Is that standard in your experience?
That wouldn't be an architect's question. Why don't we have the planner answer that? Because Ms. McManus is an expert in affordable housing. I think that would be a better question for her, Mr. Powers. Beth, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. So in terms of the affordable unit sizes, it's not uncommon to have the affordable units be smaller than the market rate housing in an inclusionary project. It's just the nature of these developments and developers seeking to get that subsidy, that compensatory benefit out of the market rate housing to help create the affordable units. I should say also, for folks that may not know, there are no standards in place for inclusionary housing projects that don't receive outside sources of funding like this project. There are no standards in place for these projects in terms of bedroom sizes. We have bedroom distribution requirements like number of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. But there's no standard for the bedroom size or the overall unit size. So I think that sometimes confused. Folks think that there may be a minimum bedroom size that's applicable, but that's just simply not the case for affordable housing in projects like this.
So you are saying that the funding for this project will not involve any public funding?
Correct.
That's
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, this is not a HMFA tax credit project, for example.
And you have a vast experience with affordable housing. How often do you run across a completely separate unit set off from the rest of the facility for the affordable housing component thereof? Is that something you've seen frequently?
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure how to quantify it, but it's probably at least, I don't know, maybe a quarter for inclusionary housing projects, especially where the market rate housing units are for sale. That it's a little bit more common to have the affordable units separated, perhaps. But it's certainly not unusual. I can say that definitively.
Okay, Mr. Farrow, thank you very much. Rochelle?
Hi. I have a question about the fencing or the lack of fencing between the townhouses and Herrick Park. So Ms. Ruskin had said that except for a short area where there's a retaining wall, that along the western, or I guess the southern edge of Herrick Park, and then, so along the bottom of the L all the way across, there would be no fencing. But I see that the planner's recommendation is that they recommend a black metal fence 6 feet high should be provided along the Herrick Park perimeter behind buildings 1 through 12. So I'm concerned that there's not going to be a separation between the park and the development. And I'm questioning why you would do that. And does the town have any requirements for fencing between a public park and private homes?
Well,
because all the other homes along the park, I believe, have fencing. So that's one question I have.
Rochelle, let them answer that first, then go on to your next.
Okay.
Jason?
yeah, sure. So there's no requirement that I don't think, have to put up a fence, but Patty, can you just confirm there is a retaining wall and a fence between buildings 3 through 12 and the park, correct?
Yeah, it's actually buildings 4 through 12.
Sorry, 4 through
in
12.
the park. There's the retaining wall with a fence on top of the retaining wall for fall protection. And the intent was to not provide a fence between the park and the residential community to provide connectivity between the residential development and the park.
Yeah, the goal I think, Patty, was to give, to allow the development to use the amenity space or the outdoor recreation area of the park, so they don't have to walk all the way around. But I just wanted to be clear that buildings 4 through 12 do have a fence separating them from the development.
If there is no fence, then.
Okay. So.
And let me just clarify one other thing for you, Rochelle. Also, building 13, Ms. Patty, we testified that based on Ms. Laney's letter, we would be adding a fence along the northern property line. If you could just explain where that is too.
Right, that is the northeast property line between the proposed development and the existing residential homes or
Yes.
the lots.
So a fence would be added there, correct? That wasn't on the plans per the township planner's recommendation?
That's correct. That would be a solid fence.
So Patty, to be clear, would the fence from building 12 connect to the one that's going along 13? Or would there be an opening?
The fence that is on the top of the retaining wall, there would be something that we would need to do right at this junction point so that we could connect them together or provide a separate section of a fence if that was the intent.
I want to just be clear, your testimony, it's going from 4 straight through the end of the property past building 13, or if there's a break?
No, it goes past the whole fence between the development and the residential would go along the whole property line.
It would be contiguous without a break.
So it's only open 1 through 3, basically.
Right, which is not what the planner recommended. I just want to bring that out. Because
So when you say planning, you're talking about our planner?
yes.
Okay, go with your next question.
Okay, my next question is in.
Oh, Rochelle, did you state your address just for the record, just so we could have?
Oh, sure. My name is Rochelle Rudnick and my address is 352 Van Buren Avenue.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. So in somewhere in those 168 pages, there was something about the hours that you expect to do construction, and that would be between 6:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekdays and 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. on weekends and holidays. Are you planning on doing construction 7 days a week?
We would comply with whatever ordinances there are out there regarding construction. Usually there are ordinances within municipalities that govern that. I don't know if Dan knows the answer to that, but we would comply with whatever the township permitted.
That doesn't give me.
Rochelle, hold on. Dan, can you address that?
Yeah, I think the only day you can't work is Sunday. But I'm not sure. I don't really handle
Also,
it.
what time in the morning with the noise ordinance?
I believe it may be even earlier, but I'll have to check.
Yeah,
Earlier than 6:30?
I think it is.
Yeah. My point is we'll comply with whatever rules the township has.
Yeah, Rochelle, I don't think we can enforce more than township rules so long as they're going to stipulate they're going to follow the town rules.
Okay.
Now, what was your next question?
I think that's, that's it.
Okay. Miriam, did you want to ask any of your questions that you're typing? Can't see. All right, she's asking if there are any upgrades or updates to the Herrick Park are going to be made as part of this project.
So I spoke to Mr. Chairman, I spoke to your attorney about this. Legally, all we can do is pay our pro rata share of any upgrades that the township would be seeking to do to the park. So in the event that the township is making any upgrades and legally we have a pro rata share to contribute, we'd be happy to do that. But that would have to be done per ordinance and based on an objective calculation with the municipality. And typically, if that's done,
You can do through a developer's agreement, correct?
yeah. So typically that would be done with the township as part of a developer's agreement. In the event that the township is making those upgrades, we would pay whatever pro rata share was allocated to our development.
And you acknowledge that ordinance exists, and that would be part of this application, correct?
Yeah, that would be done in a separate development, but yeah, and memorialized with the governing body, correct?
Perfect.
Somebody's asking again where the AC unit will be, affordable units be located. It was already referenced that it won't be on the roof or on the ground. It'll be window or building attached. Charlene wants to ask questions. Charlene, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
So I'm the person who lives closest to this development. I live at 530 Palisade Avenue, which is the house right at the corner as you turn into Herrick. And so my question is, you're saying that they will be working from 6:30 in the morning from Monday through Saturday. Is that my understanding?
I'll look up the township ordinance while we're talking, but we would just comply with whatever the township permits, is my point. So we would not.
Because I feel like I'm the resident who's going to lose my privacy. One, that's one of the main reasons I moved to.
Just remember, we can't. We would have to stage, and Patty could correct me if I'm wrong, but we wouldn't be coming up Herrick Avenue. I mean, we would, so I don't think we would be by you. But let me just.
I live directly opposite where your first unit is going to be.
Gotcha.
That house that is at the corner of Herrick, that turns, when you turn into the park, to go to the park, I'm that house at the corner.
Right. I understand. No, but we would comply with all local requirements and ordinances, and typically projects of this size, you know, are coordinated with the police department in terms of vehicles and things of that nature. So again, we would comply with all of the municipal regulations.
Okay, I still feel like I'm the one who's gonna, lose out because I'm gonna lose my privacy. There's going to be, no matter what they say, there's going to be more traffic. I read when the traffic evaluation was done, and it was done during COVID, when most people are at home working. So the traffic will be a lot less than if it was non-COVID time.
Right. We upgrade, as Mr. Verderisi testified, and he can confirm this on the record right now. Just again, he added a growth factor that, or an extra percentage of traffic that traffic engineers are utilizing now during COVID that has been accepted in the industry. So he did not just utilize the amount of cars on the road today, he factored in COVID. Is that right, Mr. Verderisi?
Correct.
Okay.
And how long does this project is going to last if it does
You
happen?
mean construction wise?
Yes.
I'll get you that answer before the end of the meeting. I have to ask my client that. I don't know if anybody here knows, any of the witnesses know that, but I'll try to get you that answer.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. All right, someone else have asked about how long about construction lasts. Without a fence on the south side of the park, encroaching the park space would be possible. It'd be better to adhere to the written plan, have a fence. A gate could provide access to the park for development residents. That's someone else's comment.
Yeah, I think that was the same question, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we feel as though we're fencing almost the entire project, and having buildings, 1, 2, and 3 be open is a nice amenity for the residents.
Grade is equal at that point?
Say that again, Mr. Chairman.
The grade.
Oh, Patty, can you answer the chairman's question on that?
Are you talking about the east-west leg?
Yes, the east-west leg back of building 1, 2, and the corner of 3 going to the park. Is the
Correct.
grade for the backyard is the same?
It's that grade. The park and the development are the same elevation.
Okay. And that's the front of their house.
That's the front of the house, correct?
So the front would be facing the park, and the corner of 3 is the side. Okay.
Correct.
The question for the planner. So in type, is it typical for the affordable housing units to appear so distinctly different from the others?
Well, I don't know if that's true, but Beth, do you want to give your opinion on that comment?
I don't think that distinct.
Yeah, where we have the affordable units that are in a separate building like we have here, it's not uncommon for, more importantly, where we have the affordable units in a separate building and where we have a different housing type, it's not uncommon for them to take on some different architectural characteristics. But what I think what's important here is we've got building architecture that is compatible. It's not in conflict. It's not conflicting styles or architectural cues that are being taken. They may be different, but they're compatible in terms of the scale of the buildings, but also in terms of the architecture. But to more directly answer the question, it's not uncommon to see these differences in a development like this.
All right. I don't see any other comments from the public. So I'm now going to close it to the public and open up to board members. Mark Zomick, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to tag on to that. And all the other, I don't know what the letter and the spirit of the law is, and you're the expert on this more than I am, certainly. And we've approved any number of developments with affordable housing units. This is what I jotted down at the beginning of the presentation. The affordable housing units are in building 13 at the edge of the property behind the garbage. it just says, I'm sure to the letter of the law you're complying, but to the spirit of a law of including the affordable houses in the greater development, it seems to me that, you're really shoving them in literally behind the garbage in the corner.
Well, I mean, I think there are a couple different ways to look at the site plan from that in this respect. I mean, yes, the affordable units are off at the end of the development, at the end of the long leg, if you will. But I really don't think it's an accurate characterization to say that they're shoved to the end behind the garbage. I mean, I can point to the site plan, and I understand why that statement could be made, but I don't think it's really consistent with the character and the theme of the development. So, I mean, another way to put it is to say that the affordable units are at the end of the road, separated from the traffic that's going to be experienced along Road A. They're also are at the end of the property where it's got more open space than any of the townhouses.
I get it. And I guess maybe my only final comment will be in the other buildings that I recollect approving, whether it was the Verizon Teaneck Road thing or Avalon Bay, there was no way for an outsider to come in to say, that's where the poor people live. But in this plan, somebody can come in to say, that's where the poor people live.
Well, and I'll just say this, those were 4 rental buildings, that's number one, and they were similar type construction where the Verizon building, where the B&E project is one large building at 1500 Teaneck Road. And the Avalon is multiple buildings, but it's still, a 4 rental project, where here, everything is for sale.
Yeah.
So actually, by doing a for sale project, our number of units is higher. So those for sale buildings, Mr. Zomick, those rental buildings provided a 15% inclusionary contribution, while by doing the affordables here in a condo project, we're actually providing a 20% affordable setting.
I get it. I'm just trying to call.
I'm just saying that my point. I just wanted to answer your question because I understood the question, and the reason for why it is it's just a different type of project than those projects.
I get it. I'm sure you're complying. It just was a little bothersome. I think there were probably any other number of ways where you could have even put smaller units within each building of the bigger units, and you couldn't be able to then point to, that's where the poor people live. It seemed a little class distinction to me, but I just wanted to call it out. It's not going to be a reason why I would vote for or against it, but it just the way it was all presented left a bad taste in my mouth.
I'm going to reopen.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Soames.
I got it. Reopening to public for a second. Mr. Soames, I told him already. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, it's funny because oddly enough, I also had the comment that I wrote down at the very beginning.
Howard, hang on, please. I have something.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Alan, good.
Okay. Regarding Mr. Verderisi and the traffic study, the traffic study cited a baseline of commercial traffic, specifically trucks coming from the site. There has been zero traffic on the site for decades, and any of the commercial traffic from the site was directed to Leonia Avenue. How can the baseline for traffic from the site to Palisade Avenue not be zero? Aren't all the trips between the site to and from Palisade Avenue newly generated?
Yeah, our analysis all assumed it's all newly generated. I was just drawing a comparison in my testimony. The traffic study makes no reference to the previous use at all.
You didn't take any, hold on a second, I just want to make sure we're clear. Nick, the traffic study that was prepared does not take any credit for the prior trips resulting from the prior industrial use.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Tavell. That is my question. What is the impact of having the access to the site from Palisade Avenue be almost exactly halfway between Pine and Herrick, and the impact to cars attempting to turn onto to or from Palisade Avenue, given that you have this new access almost exactly midway?
Yeah, it's exactly where we would want it. If you don't align, you want to be about midway, so that's where we're placed. As far as turning movements, coming out of Herrick, the volumes are very low, making a left towards our new access. So there's little to no interaction between the two intersections. Most of the people coming out of Herrick are making a right to go north.
So again, there are, even though, and I think I do understand your point, Mr. Verderisi, about putting it midway, how will the residents on the opposite side of Palisade Avenue be protected from the lights of vehicles in the evening, say, waiting to turn, that are especially a left turn heading north onto Palisade Avenue from shining directly into their homes?
Yeah, I don't think that's a question for me. It's
whoever that's for.
Well, hold on a second. Just to answer the question, Nick, how many cars, the peak hour for this project in the PM is what?
4:45. But in the PM, most of the people are entering the site, so you're not going to have
Right.
A lot of headlights exiting the site in the evening. Most people are coming home at that point.
Correct. And even the outbound, any outbound traffic in the peak hour, which is still pretty early, at least in the summer and the spring. The number of trips in the outbound during the peak, what's that number?
It's less than 30 in the morning peak hour, so 1 every 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Alan?
And the one, again, and I know it was stated that the traffic studies were done in May, which is probably near the bottom of economic activity in the first wave of the pandemic. I do understand that adjustments were made, but what were those adjustments, and what were the percentage additions to reflect to realistic levels of economic activity and traffic on Palisade Avenue?
So we took what we call control counts at a location where we had data close by. So up on Cedar Lane, we did some counts at a location where we had data, and it identified between 2 and 2.5 times increase in volume was adjusted.
And that was submitted, Nick, to the board's traffic engineer as well for their review. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
So if they found it to be unacceptable, obviously they would speak up. It's not in the review letter, but I'm sure that the board will ask Mr. Korak for his comments on the issue as well.
This is, again, now just non-traffic issues. One of the issues that have been in other some of the other buildings, whether it's Avalon, 1500 Teaneck Road, et cetera, is that the units be of basically corresponding furnishings and characteristics. Will the furnishings and the kitchens and the quality of construction and materials used in the affordable units be comparable to those of the market rate units?
Beth, can you speak to the regulations regarding that, if there are any?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. There are no requirements that similar or the same furnishings be used across the affordable units and the market rate units. And in fact, they're typically not the same finishes in these developments, because developers are entitled to seek some aspect of cost savings for the affordable units in order to produce the project.
So just to be clear, the only standards that are being met is that 20% of the units, of the total number of units, will be set aside as affordable units.
Well, I mean, that's certainly the most important standard, but there are countless other standards that have to be met for these units. But those that are relevant to construction are really limited to bedrooms and some other minor issues. And then there are a variety of other issues dealing with how the units are actually administered for affordable housing.
And also the bedroom distribution as well, correct?
Right. Yeah, those bedrooms. Yeah, the bedroom unit distribution, not the bedroom sizes.
The bedroom numbers are question, please. Sorry. So the numbers of bedrooms are dictated, and again, that's not up to you. That's
yes, it is the number of bedrooms that we do comply with that. We had to make one change in order to do so, but yes, we do meet the number of bedrooms, and that is the primary standard, physical construction standard that developers need to meet in inclusionary projects.
There are other reasons, but and again, I think Ms. McManus, this applies to the statements that you made about the extra 3 feet in height And again, in some ways, the fact that it's purely decorative and non-functional is worse to me from my perspective, because it doesn't add anything to the building. But is the health, safety, and welfare advanced by the addition of this space? I mean, you have other reasons, but is that your strongest argument for the addition of the 3 feet in height?
I mean, I think that it's certainly a component of it, and that purpose A, which you're basically referring to, I think that is supported because overall, what we're trying to do is produce an inclusionary housing project that will provide affordable units so that Teaneck can help meet its affordable housing obligation. All of that supports the general welfare in the community by providing households for a variety of incomes. I do think that's applicable. I think that's important and it's critical to this application, but I really rely on purpose I as well, which is a desirable visual environment using creative development techniques. That's the purpose that supports the additional height for the purpose of creating better looking buildings with more interesting architecture and that are not squat looking, for lack of a better word.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stone. Okay, going back to board members, it's close to the public again. I'm not reopening it. I didn't see Mr. Stone's notification there. Desiree, go ahead.
Formulating this.
I'll take care of it on the resolution.
Brian will take care of the resolution and he'll help you out the minutes in relation to that stipulation.
Yeah, I can get the transcript too to help everybody out with the resolution as well.
So Jason, assuming this gets approved, can you and Brian be in touch together? Because
Yeah.
I'd like to get this resolution. It's gonna be a little complicated, a lot of information. And our next meeting is on December 9th. So if it gets approved, let's get it done for December 9th.
Yeah, I'll work with Roz in getting the tape and all that stuff
And then you work on initial resolution and get it to Brian, and Brian fine tune it, work on it.
Sure.
And how would you work on the minutes or everything else, and the specifics of how to list the resolution? We'll deal with it afterwards. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any
You're
further
breaking
discussion on this motion before we have a vote? I'm gonna give you 30 seconds for all board members. Anybody raise your hand or wave or mute yourself? Before the vote, I'd just like to say one thing. If everybody, board members, unmute themselves now so that they can vote, be ready to vote. I'll just say to Jason, to you, on behalf of, first of all your experts did a phenomenal job. You were well organized and well presented. And to the applicant, I want to just say that having PTSD the last time we dealt with Holuba, so this was beautiful. And after 10 years of it sitting in my time already watching it from being wanted to be developed, it's a pleasure to see a beautiful project like this, and I look forward to seeing it full, just like we talked about 227 Teaneck Road earlier today. Roz,
I got a comment. Are we going to get comments from the public?
No, they're done.
No, we already had that. There was a motion on the table.
Okay. Ready.
Let's vote.
Go ahead, Roz, roll call.
Vice Chair Stern,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Ms. Ramos Reiner,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schwartz,
Yes.
Captain Cronquist,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Rose,
I'll be as concise as the presentation. Yes.
Mr. Zomick,
Yes.
Mr. Cohn.
Yes.
I don't think he votes.
Then we have,
He votes.
We have 10 people. We have
so
10
it stops at Mr. Rose and then I add you. Or stops at Captain Conquest. You want just 7?
No.
You have to have 9.
Mr. Cohn doesn't vote.
Okay.
He was the
Chair
he's the
Gardner.
9. I'm 9. I'm yes.
Okay.
We have 10 people here. The only one missing is Mr. Green.
Mr. Green. Okay, sorry, Mr. Cohn.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Who
Motion
was
to
that?
adjourn.